Welcome to the Keeping It Teal podcast. We are the CCU sports podcast that truly keeps it teal 24/7. I'm your host, Hunter Santiago, and I'm joined today by my two co-hosts, AJ Moran and Jay Largent. After experiencing the trauma that took place in Jonesboro, I got to say, I'm still happy with the dub. As I predicted in the previous podcast, I believed it was going to be a close game, like a 10 to 14 point game. We ended up getting out with a 10-point victory of a 27-17 over Arkansas State. I'm very proud of the guys for rallying towards the end of the game, and we'll kind of get into why as we go through the review of Arkansas State at the beginning of this podcast. But overall, yeah, I think there's a lot of stuff to clean up, but I'm very proud of the guys rallying together and not giving up towards the end of the game in the late third quarter as well as early fourth quarter and getting out there with the W. All right, gentlemen, let's get into the review. AJ, what do you think about the Arkansas State-Coastal Carolina game?
Yeah, thank you, Hunter. For me, a win's a win. Like you said, it was a little bit ugly, especially towards the end. It was getting very sloppy. But, we're happy to get out there with the win, all things considered. For me, some of the pros, we kept it clean. Last week on here, I said that we're giving up way too many penalties. This week, we only had 4 penalties for 35 yards. So did a good job of doing that. We dominated possession. We had like over 36 minutes of possession, which is big. But on the bad note of things, like I say, got sloppy towards the end. We were just not moving the ball forward, playing sloppy defense. A blocked field goal there towards the end. Also the obvious quarterback situation is going to be interesting, as we'll talk about later. To see what they do there. Also, I wasn't really happy with the refs on that Grayson McCall play. We did get a penalty on it. However, no targeting there for me was a little, especially given the circumstances, regardless of who it is, right? Like it could have been on the flip side of things. The ref should at least look at that for targeting, So I don't understand what that was, because then the guy, stayed in the game, right? If there's targeting, you get him out and stuff like that. On the defense side of the ball, they're a little bit, I don't know, they're really good at stopping the run, but there's just too many open receivers. Over 300 passing yards last game. There's just not enough pressure, right? There's not a lot of guys drawing the pressure, which causes turnovers and stuff like that. So for me, again, it was sloppy. It was a little bit ugly, but again, a win's a win. I'm happy with that. Jay, what do you think?
I thought overall it was a good team win. Anytime we went on the road in the Sun Belt Conference is huge. Obviously, after we lost our captain, our leader in the third quarter, I wanted to see how the team responded. And the team kept their heads pretty well despite the circumstances, because I expected our penalty count to go up, but they kept it under control. Or the bigger team didn't instigate anything, and ultimately, in the end, came out with a win and got us back home safely.
Yeah, overall, at the end of the day, the injury to Grayson McCall is the huge transition over here to our next game. This weekend, on Saturday, homecoming, Conway, South Carolina. The Coastal Carolina Chanticleers are taking on the Marshall Herd. One of the biggest things, as I just mentioned, is Grayson McCall's absence, as he has been announced to not be playing this Saturday against the Herd. And Jared Guest will be the starter for Coastal Carolina, as announced by Coach Tim Beck. The guys will kind of get into Jared Guest and the stats and the things to know. But one thing I want to point out here is in the games that we've seen Jared Guest play, specifically JMU at the very end of last season, and also in our bowl game against ECU, you notice after a couple turnovers, after a decline in play over the games, the team tends to not rally around him as much anymore. Obviously, this is a little bit of a different team. We got a different head coach. One of my biggest concerns going into this game is making sure that if Jared Guest isn't, batting to par, coming in and knocking out of the park, we have other quarterbacks on this roster. Last year, Bryce Archie was the third string behind Jared Guest and Grayson McCall, and he ended up transferring to USF. And personally, I've never asked him, but I just believe that if either Coach Staggs in the bowl game or Coach Chadwell in the game against JMU gave him a chance to bring this team back, I think he'd still be on the roster today. But I still wish him well at USF. And then when it comes to our team this year, we got Vasco through the transfer portal, and we have Boda, who's a freshman, which I believe is redshirted, but he's still a stud. We got him to decommit from UNLV and come over here to Coastal. In a game that's so vital, in our last chance effort, to win out and get a chance at the East again for the Sun Belt Championship and Grayson McCall's last year, We cannot allow this game to get 2 possessions down or multiple turnovers with Guest as our quarterback. So I highly advocate to this coaching staff that, we trust in one of our other quarterbacks if it doesn't go well. At the end of the day, as a Coastal Carolina fan, I still want Jared Guest to go out there and put on a great performance. Prove us wrong. He is McCall's roommate. They're really good friends. He's definitely learned a lot from McCall, and I know McCall would love for his best friend to go out there and kick ass, as we would. But we still need to understand that if we are down 10 to 14 points or we are down 2 turnovers, that we have to switch quarterbacks. So that's something I would like to put out there before my guys go out there and tell you some more stuff about Marshall. I'm going to go ahead and throw it over to my guys.
Obviously, the Herd started out the season 4-0, got a big one at home over a Power 5 member in Virginia Tech, and had been on a 3-game slide, and they're going to come in ready to win, ready to fight, ready to be in a battle with us. And they're going to have a big, huge fan base, as a lot of Marshall fans are retired and live in the Myrtle Beach, Conway area, as long as a sellout. And I expect a big contingency of Herd fans to be at the game on Saturday. And we're going to need to be played sound football and need to come ready to play. AJ, what you got for the Herd?
Yeah, for me, as far as the history, where Coastal's 1-0 all time, we're going to hold that for now, even though we've only seen them once as a new member of the Sun Belt. But just like you said, Jay, 3-game losing streak, they've had a rough time. But this is a hard-nosed, physical team, and they're going to beat you up. Their losses have been tough losses, right? They don't give up easily. They don't roll over. So this is going to be one of those games you're going to have to earn it, and they're going to come in ready to play.
Now that we've covered some basic information about this Marshall football program, we're going to transition over to players on this Marshall football program to watch out for during this homecoming game in Conway. AJ, who do you have in this game for Marshall to look out for?
Yes, on the offensive side of the ball, for this week, I'm going with quarterback Cam Fancher, number 14. He's a redshirt sophomore. And this year on the season, he's got 1,679 yards passing, 7 touchdowns to 6 picks. So that's something you got to look out for, right? That touchdown to pick ratio is pretty good for us. However, he runs the ball a ton. He's got 130 net yards and 2 rushing touchdowns. Again, this team is a big, physical, hard-nosed team that run the ball a lot. And with him at the helm, I think it's going to be important to watch out for him. On the defense side of the ball, I got Sam Burton, number 0, defensive lineman, redshirt senior. This season, he's got 24 total tackles, 4.5 tackle for loss, and 4 sacks, right? This is a guy that's a menace. He's in the backfield. You got to make sure you pick him up and you prevent him, right, from blowing up our plays. And I got another wild card this week, 2 weeks in a row. Crazy, I know. But I'm going with number 45, punter, John McConnell. You might be saying, AJ, why are we going with a punter this week? Well, I'll tell you why. Redshirt sophomore, averages about 44 yards per punt. Okay, but he's got 9 punts this season inside the 20-yard line. 9. That's pretty good. And last week he hit his longest punt, 74-yard punt. That was the longest one for him last week against James Madison. So again, wild card pick. The guy can punt the ball, and then makes a big difference. When if they're pinning you down in your own territory, because then you got to go a lot further. And again, especially with a backup quarterback, that could be an issue. Jay, who do we got to watch out for this week?
Obviously, to start on the Marshall offense, you got to start with their running back, Rasheen Ali. He didn't play against JMU, and he's 4th in the conference in rushing yards, averaging a little over 100 a game, and he has 11 total touchdowns on the year. And if our defense isn't ready, he's going to run all over us, and we're going to have to play good, sound football and stop him to have a good chance of winning on Saturday. And then on the defensive side of the ball, I'm going to go with the hometown kid, Owen Porter, linebacker, senior, also a first-team Sunbelt selection last year and also a preseason first-team selection this year. And he's 3rd on the team in tackles with 20 solo tackles and 24 assisted tackles with a total of 44 total tackles on the year. And if we don't block him, he's going to be in the backfield all night and going to make it very hard for us to come out with a win on Saturday night for homecoming.
Now the guys have given you some players to look out for on this Marshall program. Let's transition over to how Coastal Carolina football team can come out with a W against Marshall. Jay, what do you got on us getting a potential W here in Conway for homecoming against this Marshall Herd program?
Obviously, you got to start out fast. Homecoming, you got to get everybody's coming back for the first time in a while, and you got to get them behind you. And you got to come out in the first series, and you got to score. You got to come away with some sort of points, and you can't give it over to Marshall that easy and allow them to score, because it's going to take your fans out of it and get the herd fans riled up and rowdy. And it's going to be very hard for us to come back and get a win if we don't come out ready to play on Saturday night. AJ, what do you got for us to win on Saturday?
Yes, for me, I got a couple different things. Number one, you got to stop the run, right? I say it almost every week here, but this is really true with this team. Like you said, Jay, Rasheen Ali, 11 rushing touchdowns, right? This guy's a problem. I mean, you can't let him beat you. They have a lot of guys that could beat you in the run, so you got to stop that, number one, right? The number two is you got to defend the pass a little bit better, right? Giving up 300 plus passing yards to Arkansas State makes me a little worrisome about how this secondary could hold up. So we got to find a way to defend that better. Again, quarterback situation, right? This is going to be Coastal's going to have to, Jared Guess is going to have to step up here, right, and play to that level that we hope we could hit that next gear. Because from what we've seen of him so far, I'm a little worrisome with that as well. But again, he's going to have to hit that next gear. He's going to have to come ready to play if we're going to be able to win. And again, like you said, Jay, homecoming, right? So you got to get to a hot start. You got to get those fans involved. And you got to have a strong finish, right? Things got sloppy a little bit last week towards the end, but you have to finish strong regardless of circumstances. And it's been 37 days since Coastal's last home game. I know they're hungry for it, and I know they're ready to be home again. And I hope that continues come Saturday.
Yeah, thank you, AJ. Yeah, for me, honestly, I'm going to harken back to what I said earlier. My major key to victory here is quarterback play. If we are down 2 possessions, or if we are into the double 2 or 3 even turnovers and haven't switched quarterbacks, I do believe that will be our downfall. So once we're down 2 possessions or have had multiple turnovers, we need to shift quarterbacks. It's just that simple. Now, of course, if it was 2 running back fumbles, I could understand as to why you would keep Guest in the game, because that's not his fault unless it was a faulty handoff. But if we have 2 turnovers at the quarterback position, we need to switch. I don't care if it's Vasco or if it's Blake Boda. One of those 2 guys needs to go out there and show us what they got, because we cannot allow a game to tank in a scenario where we need to win out the rest, especially for the sake of McCall. He put his life, his body, his, stamina, everything on the line last week as well as every week. And to lose a game without him in there, that would take his chances almost to zero to being able to compete in his last Sun Belt championship would just be awful. So I need us to make sure, as this Coastal Carolina football program, that if Guest is not delivering, that we need to give another guy a chance. So that is my key to victory. And let's transition over to the Coastal Carolina football players to watch during this game. AJ, who do you got?
Yeah, so on the offensive side of the ball, I'm going tight end Kendall Carr this week. Last game, 3 catches, 31 yards, and a touchdown. The past 2 weeks, he's seen more and more touches, right? There's been more and more involvement from him ever since they've changed up the offensive scheme a little bit. So I think he's going to be big in this game, and I think it's going to be important for Coastal and for Jared Guest, right? If he could be active and if he could find himself open. And then on the defense side of the ball, I'm going Tobias Fletcher this week. On the season, 15 total tackles, a sack, and 2 picks. One of them being a big-time pick in last game against Arkansas State that kind of helps seal the deal a little bit. I think he's going to be a big-time worry for the Marshall offense with him in that secondary. Jay, who do you got?
Obviously, for offense, Jared Guest, you got to see next man up mentality. I want to see if he's up to a challenge to get us the big win on homecoming, and see if he rises up and takes the reins from his brother, roommate, Grayson McCall, while he's out. And obviously, on defense, I'm going to go with the linebacking core of JT Killen and Shane Bruce. And I want to see if they'll be able to tackle and play good sound football, because if they take Rasheen Ali out of the game, we're going to have a good chance of winning on Saturday night.
For Coastal players to watch for me, I have on offense Reese White. And the reason why is when you look back at games where we put up 30 to 40 points, and most of those when Reese White was active, he was a prominent figure in the offense. He's a Swiss Army knife. He's going to go out there. He's going to get your screen passes. Sometimes he even goes out for a deep ball, and he's really good at running the ball. So to take a lot of pressure off a guy like Jared Guest, we need a running back in there who's going to get the job done on all aspects. Defensively, I'm going to go with Allen Henry of our defensive line. When it comes to sacks, him and Michael Mason are tied for first with 1.5 sacks. Yes, 1.5 sacks. This season, we don't have a lot of pressure on the quarterback. So we need to make sure that in a game like this, where we're going against a high-powered offense, and it's not going to get easier the rest of the season, ladies and gentlemen, we still have Texas State and JMU, as well as a fairly decent ODU offense as of late, that we're going to have to get pressure on. So why not start now? Let's showcase that we can get some sacks, get some pressures on a really good quarterback and a really good Marshall Hurd offense. Yeah, so those are my guys to watch out for on the Coastal side of the ball in this game. All right, let's transition over to the Sun Belt Pick'ems, one of our favorite parts of the podcast. Obviously, always going to be towards the back burner end of these podcasts. All right, guys, to our leaderboard based off of last week. AJ's in the lead at 5-1, and then we got Jay and I tied at 4-2. This could go many different ways. AJ's picks this week could ascend him even further away and closer to victory at the end of the season, or me or Jay could easily swoop around and get ahead of the curve this week, or we could end in a three-way tie. Excited to see how this plays out, guys. Let's absolutely get this rolling, gentlemen. Let's start out here with Georgia Southern, Georgia State. AJ, what do you got for this game?
Well, before this game, I just want to toot my own horn here really quick. 5-1, almost went perfect. I just call it like I see it. The Cajuns kind of failed me though by throwing away the game, and I don't know if anybody watched that game. They almost had it. They had a shot to win that game and shock everybody, shock the world. They threw it away. But anyway, Thursday night game. So we are recording this on a Wednesday night. So this is tomorrow night. But by the time this podcast might goes out, this game might have already happened. But Georgia State at Georgia Southern, this is a really good one, right? Like this is a potential Sun Belt East, right, champion type of matchup here. But I got to stick with my Sun Belt East champions, Georgia Southern as the home team. I think that it's going to be electric there. I'm going to go with Georgia Southern this week.
All right, Jay, who do you got in this matchup between the battle of the Georgia teams?
Obviously, these two teams don't like each other. I mean, they're like App State Coastal for us. I got Georgia Southern winning this game. Davis Brennan, that high-powered offense will be too much for Chad Stacks to stop. So I got Georgia Southern Eagles winning big on Thursday night.
All right, guys, I'm going to pick against the pack here. I think that, when in the grand scheme of things for Coastal specifically, not even just going to the specifics of this game, I think Coastal's most likely path forward to the Sun Belt Championship needs a Georgia State victory. Georgia State has the hardest schedule going forward between the two, and we need both of them to have 3 conference losses since they are both our 2 current conference losses. So seeing as though that Georgia State has the harder schedule going forward, meaning they're more likely to lose more games after this, for the Coastal benefit, I just want Georgia State to win. Whether or not they should win, I want them to win. So I'm just going to put it into the ether that Georgia State's going to come out here in a close victory, probably by 1 to 3 points over Georgia Southern. They both have fairly good offenses. I think that if Georgia State goes out there and gives a similar defensive performance like they did against us in Conway, that they're going to win this matchup. All right, guys, let's move over to Marshall at CCU. Obviously, this is the biased picks, but let's see if anyone goes against our Chanticleer football team. Jay, let's start with you. Who do you got in this matchup between the Herd and the Chanticleers at homecoming?
Obviously, for homecoming, I got CCU. CCU's 12-8, and this will be homecoming game number 21. And we have lost the last 2 homecoming games, and I don't see it being 3. I have the Chants winning by 21 for the 21st home game.
All right, AJ, who do you got in this matchup?
Yeah, I'm biased here, so I'm going to have to go with Coastal. But here's the thing, right? Like Jay just said, we've lost back-to-back homecoming games. That's not great for us. And I think the big thing here is the fans got to be electric this week. A lot of fans are there in the beginning, but don't stay till the end. That's been my biggest problem, biggest pet peeve with Coastal football games, right? They aren't there towards the end of the game when you really need them to be. And this is just one of those games that's going to be like punch for punch, right? Got to stay in it. The fans got to stay in it and be active. And again, I'm nervous for some of the other reasons we mentioned a little bit earlier. But again, I got to stay with Coastal on this one.
I am also going to go Coastal. Obviously, we all have to be biased here, but I just don't want to pick against my guys. I'm hoping for Jared Guest to come out here and make us all look like fools, and that, hey, under Tim Beck, he's a completely different quarterback than he was under Jamie Chadwell and under Coach Staggs. But also, if not, hey, Vasco could come in and cook if they do the right thing and switch out Guest if he's not playing well, and maybe even Boda burns his red shirt and comes in here and absolutely cooks and shows he's the quarterback of the future. I don't know. Either way, I'm going with the Chanticleers in our homecoming game. All right, let's move on to Southern Miss versus App. Who you got, AJ?
Yeah, for me, App State, I mean, I called it. They've been struggling. They really, really need a win at home, back at the Rock. However, right, here's the thing. I cannot, in a good conscience, pick App State. I don't care how bad Southern Miss is this year, and let's be honest here, they're terrible. Right? They're awful. App State at home, need to win badly. I'm going with the Golden Eagles regardless. I don't care. It's happening. Right, let's go Southern Miss.
All right, Jay, what are your thoughts on this game? Who are you picking?
Obviously, a disappointing loss for App State last week. They're needing a desperate win. Their fans are getting antsy and they need answers, and they're back home at the Rock where they don't lose too often, and I have App State picking up their win on Saturday.
All right. Well, I'm going to move in the direction that isn't necessarily what I initially thought when I looked at this game 2 weeks ago. After getting absolutely disappointed in one of my two L's during my pick'ems last week was App State. I don't trust them. I'm kind of with AJ, but I'm not just picking against them because I don't want them to win or that I don't like them. It's more so like they really, really blew it for me by losing to ODU. So I'm going to go in here and say Frank Gore Jr. is going to put on an absolute masterclass in Boone, rushing for about 200 yards, and I'm going to give USM the dub. All right, let's move on to Ark State's loser-ass program versus ULM. Jay, who you got winning this matchup?
Obviously, everybody's going to pick Ark State, but I'm going to go with ULM. They've been playing pretty good football, and I see ULM coming up with an upset on Saturday against the Red Wolves.
AJ, who you picking in this one?
See, I'm going with the Red Wolves. We talked about how they're a pretty good team, going into last week's game, and they showed us that they're going to hang in. Right, they're a pretty good football team. Louisiana Monroe, they've been pretty rough in the past here. I don't know what that football program really is. It's hard to say. So I'm going with the Red Wolves this week.
I'm also going with the Red Wolves here. I don't like them after everything that happened, like we talked about with Butch Jones just being an absolute jerk of a coach, celebrating McCall's injury, to also not taking accountability for himself or his player, number 9, at the very end of the game in his post-game interview. I still got to go with Ark State. I don't want them to win, but I just don't see ULM coming out with a victory in this game. So for the sake of me getting my record better than Pick'ems, I'm taking the Red Puppies, as the Sean Show calls them. All righty, let's move on to ULL versus South Alabama. AJ, who you got winning this matchup?
Yeah, South Alabama is actually a better team than I think a lot of people expected. They blew out Southern Miss, which again is they're not that great this year. But I think South Alabama is like you said, Hunter. In the beginning, we're like, oh, this team might be good, and they had a stretch where it's like, actually, I don't know. But they're gonna hang in and stuff. However, the Cajuns, like they brought it down last week. They let me down. However, they're coming back and they're gonna make up for it this week. Give me the Cajuns.
All right, Jay. Who do you have in this matchup?
Obviously, the Cajuns disappointed AJ last week, but I'm going to have to go with South Alabama. They're just too good of an offense, and they're playing at home, and I see South Alabama coming in with a win on Saturday.
I'm going to leave Jay as the lone wolf here in this game. If y'all pay attention to our first episode, or if you want to go watch it afterwards, I'm about to spoil you. But obviously, when we also did our picks for who's going to win the Sun Belt Conference Championship this year, as well as the participants, I picked Coastal to win out, hopefully, obviously very biased, and then to go up against the Cajuns in a grudge match for the Sun Belt Championship that never was during COVID. So I got to go with the Cajuns in this matchup. I do think South Alabama is going to put up a lot of points. I think this could easily be a shootout, but I just think ULL is going to come out with the dub. All right, let's start with AJ again for Troy at Texas State.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of good Sun Belt matchups this week, right? I think we all agree on that. We talked about Georgia State, Georgia Southern. That's probably a big time matchup for the East. This matchup right here, Troy, Texas State, is a big time matchup for the West, right? This is going to be one of those games that's going to make or break, right? Who might come out with the West? At Texas State. However, I'm going with my Sun Belt West champions in this one, Troy Trojans.
All right, I see you, AJ. Jay, who do you got in this matchup?
Obviously, I got to go with my Sun Belt champions, Texas State. I mean, they're having their best season in forever, and they need one more win to get 6 wins and go to their first bowl game ever. So I see the Bobcats winning on Saturday, taking back Texas, and how they say them, eat them up. And I see the Cats winning on Saturday.
All right. Once again, Jay Largent, Dr. Jay Largent, as many call him, is going to be the lone wolf on this pick. I'm going with Troy as well. They had a fairly good game against JMU. They also beat, in my opinion, the snot out of Georgia State. I think overall they're one of the better teams in the Sun Belt. Not having a beautiful year, but their defense is still doing really well. I think their offense isn't what it used to be, but their defense is still up there with one of the better defenses. So give me Troy against Texas State. And then finally, to close out this week's Sun Belt pick'ems and really dictate the future of who's winning in the leaderboards, we have Old Dominion versus JMU. Who is going to pick ODU? Let's start with Jay on this one. Who do you have?
Obviously, I picked against James Madison last week, and I can't go 2 weeks picking against them. So I got the James Madison Dukes at home getting the win over ODU on Saturday.
Okay, AJ, are you going to be the one that picks ODU?
Absolutely not. However, here's the thing. At JMU, right? I told you again last week, and Jay obviously didn't learn his lesson. He didn't listen to me. This is a legit team, right? James Madison is a problem. Now, how long they're going to be a problem, I don't know. JMU now snuck their way into the polls. I believe they're now at 25, which is big for them and obviously big for the Sun Belt, as Sun Belt teams haven't been ranked. Usually, right, Sun Belt, there's a couple Sun Belt teams in the rankings. We've gotten some disrespect this year as a Sun Belt conference, but JMU found their way in. Again, at JMU, 7-0, make it 8-0. This JMU team is really, really good. However, here's the thing. I'm not a betting man, but for those of you who are, right, they got JMU right now at -20 on that line. ODU finds a way to keep things close, right? I know we've mentioned it a little bit off camera, right? ODU keeps games close, and I think ODU is going to cover here. Again, I'm not a betting man, but for those of you who are, you might want to look into this one. I think Old Dominion keeps it close, but I think James Madison still wins.
Yeah, I'm also going to take JMU in this one. I just can't see myself betting against them right now as much as I hate them. It's going to be a real tough game here at the end of the season for the Chanticleers when we go and play them at home. But yeah, no, I'm going to take JMU to close out our Sun Belt Pick'ems. Thank you for listening to our latest episode of the Keeping It Teal podcast. Please like and subscribe on our YouTube, Spotify to keep up to date with all things Teal. Until next time, good night, Teal Nation.